Welcome back. If you joined us for part one, I'm so glad you're here for part two. And if you're just jumping in, you may want to go back and start there. Either way, let's dive in. Yeah. Being in construction tech, both technology and construction are very male dominated. So, coming from where you came from prior to construction, do you think that, or what, I should say, probably more so, what has the construction and construction tech environment taught you about leadership and credibility that maybe you knew in a different way before,
Mhm.
but specifically after your experience with a space that was and is so male dominated?
Yeah. I mean, I had to kind of go through some ups and downs. When I was younger and had brown hair down to here, I would wear like a lower cut shirt. Like I just subconsciously thought about ways to get my foot in the door. And I didn't, I used like being female totally differently. I also would think that the best people to walk onto job sites were either guys who looked like construction workers or women because it was just different, and people just like something different. Both of those I would look back on now and say are not appropriate ways, that I would want anybody to be acting. I was acting in the environment that I was in, right? And the way that I was getting responses. I'll tell you, got asked out to a lot more lunches than I got deals closed. Just to like, it was total, waste of time. The first free meal seemed like cute when I'm like 26, and then it was like, but I'm not making any money. So I think that a lot of it has to just kind of approach it head on. I just act as if I am supposed to be somewhere. But in the back of my head, I also know that if it's a room full of guys, and I'm like this, so I have more in common with them about who I'm going to go out with than most people. But I understand that it is a disruption to them to have somebody there. I don't accept that they need to, act the same way because of it. But if somebody walks in who looks more like somebody who might be somebody they would date or be their wife, they don't want to deal with it. They just want to talk to people that look like them and not overthink the like, ridiculous thoughts that are coming in their head. I have to also recognize that this is a change for them. It's a change that I expect and like demand from them so that they act differently. But I do try to also think about the fact that this is like a different thing for them than it has been to have more women involved. I think until we get to more parity, it's always going to be like this, which is why the industry needs to do a better job of reaching out to different types of people and be like, we welcome all the best minds and ideas and hardworking people to be in this industry because we have jobs that need to be filled. We have not enough welders to do all the welding jobs within the next 5 years. We have 349,000, give or take, job openings right now in all aspects of construction in the US to finish the construction that is happening this year. And so people need to kind of be okay with that change. But I also look at things that guys do and they don't apologize. When people say, that's a really great idea you have, thanks. Like, and that's it. That's the end of my sentence. I adopt behavior. I adopt the way that I stand. I work with other women on saying stuff like that because it's obviously working for them. So it's
Right.
being kind of aware of who they are and what they're frustrated about, which is like, oh, great, like we have more women here, like they can't say it, but they might feel it. So, like, let's deal with it. And also adopting some of the things that are working for them. I've learned a lot in negotiation from the way the guys act. And definitely when people give me a compliment and say something, I actually was getting in trouble because I would say, people would be like, that's a great idea. And I'm like, yeah, I know, because I said it. Um, you know, they were like, okay, well, you don't have to add that part. Can you just say the thanks part? Like, so yeah, there's plenty to learn. If we stay open to learning instead of being frustrated, and we can have fun with it too. So yeah, you can use that one when people are like,
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I said to you're like, tell me something I don't know. Yeah, no, I was just talking to a group of girlfriends the other day, and I'm like, we as women, just like what you were saying, take a page out of their book. We need to have all the audacity that men have. Like,
Hmm.
it doesn't even cross their mind. They don't even know. they're being audacious. They're just like
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
living in their own skin. And it's like, holy shit, they're really, wow. Like they just went for it. And it's like we as women need to be more that way,
Yeah.
for sure. Because, why not? Let's waste less time. You spend a lot of time advising companies and speaking about leadership and growth and all the things we've been talking about. Is there a message or a theme that you just find yourself that you keep coming back to again and again when you're talking to people or when you're talking to an audience in general?
Well, I know one of the things that, and the first thing that popped into my head when you were saying that, one of the things that I think is essential is curiosity, not accept things the way they are, in like a jokingly like question authority kind of thing. I was saying something the other day. I was leading a panel over at Gilbane with Sarah from Trunk Tools, who's the CEO and founder, and people from like Suffolk Ventures who invest in a lot of new technology. And I was asking them what we think in 2035 we're going to look back on and be like, oh my goodness. I always think about wheels on luggage. I mean, when I was a little kid, there were no wheels on luggage. What were we doing?
Right? We
You
were
know,
dragging that shit
cloth
through. Well, we didn't do the
bags.
airport when I was a kid,
It
but we
wasn't
were
even
dragging it everywhere in the
plastic. It
trunk of the
was
car.
cloth, and it could get like worn down, and everybody only had one in like the whole family. So the thing, it was like, what is that thing that is out there that we are just accepting as truth? So I think a big thing about like if it's leadership, if it's like, why does that guy keep dropping the ball? Well, be curious. Don't just wonder why and don't say it. Like, have a conversation. Why? Why does this solar panel like keep doing whatever? Well, find out and uncover everything. So, a big thing about that, and that is about leadership too, is like, why aren't people getting along? Or why is this meeting so long? Or why there needs to be a lot. I used to put the word why on a post it note and stick it on somebody's computer and be like, yeah, okay. Like,
And then they're like, "Are you talking about my outfit, my
yeah,
idea,
yeah,
or
yeah,
what?"
yeah. Everything. That's be curious. Keep wondering what I'm talking about. No. Yeah, and it takes space. We used to have to talk about, I mean, I'm sure you had to deal with this, right? Email blasts and what should we put on the front page of the website for the next blah, blah, blah. And, don't just look in your own industry. Look at what's capturing your eye on car commercials or when you go to like order something at a restaurant, what jumped out at you? Like what fonts are people using right now? Are they using people or products in ads? What is it? Be curious about everything. And that's a thing people should schedule time for is like a little bit of white space to think about something. It could just be 10 minutes, but I think it's extremely helpful. And it isn't just about company growth, but it's also about like leadership and personal development is figuring out the why.
I really like that because one of the things I was just talking to another one of our whips that was on the show earlier, but I was just talking to her about, one of the things that I've noticed and always tried to keep in whatever I'm doing is that the curiosity that you mentioned, the smartest people in the room and the smartest people I've ever known or met are the ones that are just like insatiably curious. They are not afraid to ask the dumb question. They're not
Mhm.
afraid to say the thing. And
Yeah.
I think, so many people hold themselves back because they are afraid to like, oh gosh, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to not know something I'm supposed to know. And so they kind of they squish that they hide that curiosity, and I think you're exactly right. And I think it shows, again, highlights who the smartest leaders in the room are. Not just leaders, but just smartest people in the room are always the ones asking the most questions and curious, genuinely curious, and not afraid to ask any level of question.
Yeah. Well, and I only know the questions I want to ask. So I really want to know the questions you want to ask because we're different, right? And so it's not just that I'm here trying to figure out all of my whys and being curious. It's, if other people aren't being curious, I am also curious as to like what they have to say because it's going to be totally different than me.
Yeah. Okay, so sort of a gear switch. Um, you are also now the executive director of the U.S. Women's Rugby Foundation, Yay. And you're helping support women and girls in sport. So, what impact I want to hear all about what you're doing
Yeah.
over there, but also what impact are you hoping to create through that work? And why is it important for people to support organizations like the Women's Rugby Foundation?
Yeah. This has been just like a real blessing. The U.S. Women's Rugby Foundation was founded 21 years ago by women who played rugby. Some of them are the original Eagles who played in the World Cup in '91. It's an all volunteer board, and they were literally founded because in growing girls and women's rugby, they wanted to help people who were coaches, referees, and team admins. You can't have a team without somebody spearheading the team, right? And it's like a lot of sports, which is, gymnastics and swimming and a lot of different sports that you can't financially make a living at it at any level. But it's still a really important thing for people to have exposure to. I love rugby because I think a little bit rugby can save the world because it's this teamwork sport. And for women and girls especially, there's like a phrase, you can't win without the big girls. There's also a t-shirt that says thick thighs score tries. A try is what it's called when you score. And the game is built for positions of like a very small person who needs to get in the middle of, what people have probably seen, which is like the scrum when they're all pushing together, who gets in there and gets the ball out to the people, the backs who were like the fast runners. And then you need the bigger people to be like pushing the ball down the field. And there's not any other girls sport that you need so much diversity in size and skill to be able to play it and have everybody do it together. And so that's one thing I really love about it. The second thing is that the whole community is very about supporting each other. Rugby teams, probably more than any other sport that I've known, are the people who show up in your divorce, the people who show up when you're moving, the people who show up when, they're the shower uppers. And both sides, like at the end of every match, all the teams usually get together and go out. And I've never been in another sport where everybody goes out together. So the community itself, and I've heard so many parents say, wow, I'm just so glad that my kid is a part of this sport. Sports overall is leadership. You learn about failure, you learn about resilience, you learn about creative problem solving. And I think that these are the types of people that we want to be our next business leaders and community leaders. And, there's crazy statistics about a third of girls dropping out of sports at the age of 14. Things start to develop and they feel uncomfortable in their bodies and things are being pointed out to them. You don't want to be sweaty, that's not hot. I also, something which I never thought about, but is still a thing, is that any girl who plays sports can be accused of being gay, queer. And even if they are, or they're not sure, that's an uncomfortable label to be carrying when you're 14, 16, sometimes when you're 35, probably. And so there's all these reasons that people leave. And they leave these opportunities to be able to grow. When I think about trying to coach somebody in business, they need to be able to come up against obstacles. And you always lose in sports. You never win every game. So you have to learn, and you take direction.
Right.
Lengthen your stride, change your grip, whatever sport you're in, or even like a musical instrument or some sort of team activity, you have to take feedback to get better. And if you don't know how to take feedback, we see that translate to the workspace. We see that translate to like being a good neighbor. We see that translate to how people move through the community. So if we're losing people and not letting them have this opportunity, that's just a real shame for all the potential that anybody could have. So the foundation specifically raises money to help and support the people who are the coaches and the referees. We have webinars about everything from like on-field techniques to off-field, how do you wear multiple hats and deal with like parents and administration. And frankly, if you're a coach, maybe people who are similar age to you, but you have to, in the same way that management is, We have a conference every year, which was so awesome to have you there. And we try
Yay,
to
it was
have,
so fun.
yeah, best practices, a lot of community building because huge country, right? And there could be like a high school or somebody somewhere, and everybody feels kind of siloed. They feel like maybe I'm the only one dealing with this. So we try to bring the community together. Then we have a real history part of it as well, where we've documented the history of women's rugby. It's important to acknowledge and honor all of the athletes that have come before. Yeah, and sports is so fun. Like it's just an amazing community. So I'm really blessed to be a part of it. We hope to grow it a lot more, as in getting more funding and sponsorship to then bring it back out to the community. But yeah, so I'm pretty new to it. I played in Boston in the 2000s at Boston Women's Rugby Football Club. I was on the like B team. There were some great people I played with. I was just happy to be there. but but yeah, and then I got looped back into it through actually a friend of mine who's on the board, Amy Marks, who I knew through Autodesk, and then now she's over heading up innovation at Compass Data Centers, and her daughter's a great player, and so she's on the board and was like, hey, let's I want to do even more and help these women and, learn from them. And what do you think about being a part of it? So I love having a foot in the door there. The last thing I'll say is I see this pathway too of like women athletes going into the construction industry. There's a lot of similarities about how sports works and construction works. And I'd love to get, them more hands-on. And a lot of them would much rather be carrying pipe than sitting at a desk. So yeah, so there's an opportunity there, but more to come, but it's an amazing thing to be able to be a part of.
Well, and I think also just any of us that played sports, I think it gives you a different perspective. Like you said, you become used to losing. It's not like the end of the world. You lose one time and everything's over. You're used to that, but also the teamwork. It's about teamwork and being creative on how you're working together as a team and how you're winning together and how you're
Yeah.
moving forward together. And I think
Yeah.
that also applies to construction when you're coming together to build this building or build this bridge or
Yeah.
whatever. It's about the teamwork. How can people support the U.S. Women's Rugby Foundation? How can we support you in what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for more people to know supporting women's sports is very popular right now. Our website is www.uswrf.org, and there are donations available. We have a cool Champions Club that people can donate to on a regular basis and get what's called a challenge coin. It originates back in the Roman times. You need to be careful in rugby though, because if you are with some people with rugby and you have a challenge coin and you forgot to bring yours, you do have to buy a round of alcohol. So being a part of
Noted.
yes, the challenge club can be can be expensive if you don't play it right. Uh, but going to the website would be great. I also love people who want to help in a specific way. We had a webinar last year where we had some people talk about helping our members with their LinkedIn presence. Just as in baseball or football or something, most people are not going to make money like a full career out of either coaching or playing a sport like rugby. So they need jobs. And I want our members to be the most financially literate, the best at negotiation, the best at whatever it might be. I want to be that resource. So, we're looking for somebody who is a financial planner that wants to be a part of educating our members. We're looking for people who want to help maybe with resume shaping for our members. So anything, I look at it kind of like a 360 support of the organization. Rugby's still a very accessible sport. I mean, I saw Ilona Maher is, kind of the pinnacle of the person who popped from social media after the last Olympics with the team won the bronze medal, the first Olympic medal that a U.S. rugby team had ever won. And these people, you can get these, like I've got these people, and we can get these people on the phone. Like if you want a picture with an Olympian or somebody who won a World Cup or something, they are also very, focused on helping to grow the sports. This is the time to get involved in women's rugby. We have the Olympics coming in 28. The next World Cup is going to be in Australia, but the one after that in 2033 is in the United States. And you can be with the best rugby women in the world and possibly be, friends with and knowing these people. I mean, this is where that sport is. It's super exciting. So I love for people to go to the website, and take a look at that. And there's obviously a donate button. Freaking $20, would be great. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And we'll link the website so everybody sees that in the show notes so everybody
yeah,
can know where to go. We
yeah,
also, it's not that serious as doing our
yes,
little piece. We're
yeah,
doing a scrunchy partnership where
yeah,
proceeds are going to women's rugby. So I think it's not necessarily about doing giant things, but all the
no,
little things add up together, right?
yeah,
So I feel like sometimes people don't do stuff because they feel like, oh, well, I can't give $1,000 or I can't give $1 million. But it's like, it's just a little thing. If everybody was doing a little bit, then it
yeah.
adds up to a big
Yeah.
difference,
I
right?
mean, what did you think? I mean, you had your first introduction to the women's rugby community in January. And then out of that, you're already doing something because everything, like anything is on the table. You want to be creative. You can come up with a way to like help rugby. But what did you think of the people that you met there?
I thought it was awesome. As somebody that played sports in high school and I didn't play in college, but I was always athletic and I always loved team sports and I loved the camaraderie and there is a real camaraderie with all the rugby players and all the ladies that were at the conference. It was so great to get some insight into that world and to see that. And I am a huge fan of women's sports. If there is one thing that I'm like, always wanting for all the gals, whether it's, and it doesn't have to be, like you're playing rugby, it could be dance, you're a dancer, but just, I feel like it teaches you so much about yourself
Hmm.
and about teamwork and about resilience. And like you said, learning to fail, like
Hmm.
that's a thing. So I think any way that I and or my company can support women in sports, I'm happy to do it, and I'm so happy to have had the opportunity to do anything with the conference this year. That was super fun for me, and I really loved the camaraderie of everybody. I thought it was really absolutely lovely, and not I wasn't surprised at all, quite frankly. But it was just really nice to see in person, and to be able to do something to help lift it up.
Yeah, yeah. Very cool. Yeah,
Okay.
I love showing
Um,
it to people, so I'm glad you could come.
I am so thrilled I could come, and I'm so glad you did. And thank you for including us, including the company, and including me. I did not, before I had you on this podcast, I did not know all of the things that were you. And one of my favorite parts of your story is that you also have done some very creative things, like
Mm.
producing films and stand-up comedy, which some people maybe might not expect from you because you're this like badass in construction tech and they know that side of you. So what would you say? I mean, I know that the things that the creative world has done for me to help me in business, but what do you think for you, that
Mhm.
creative side of you, that creative world has taught you, that business never could, that or helped you in business in either way?
I mean, working on films, I ended up producing some films. I was helping somebody with a film, and it was a independent film, so no budget. And the person who was supposed to help with the set decorating in this apartment was hungover and basically passed out in the room that the actors were getting ready in. And so I said, you know what?
Whoops.
I don't think we need you. I don't think we need you for the rest of the day. Like I didn't ask anybody. I didn't even know how it worked. Like I was just, I don't know, getting pizzas or something like that. I don't even know what I was doing. And I told that person to leave because I saw them like affecting people who needed to go on camera. And then when it came time to like move the table from here to here, like I just did it. And they were like, where did so and so go? And I'm like, oh, I told her to go home. She was like a complete mess. And they were like, what? like because everything was free and they didn't do that. Like they were just happy somebody showed up. And everything worked out fine. But then the other people who worked on the film were like, I kind of want to fire somebody too. Can you come and work on my film and then fire that person? And so, like, that's how
You were
it
the hammer.
happened. I was like, yeah, we don't need you. Like, we're good. Like, if you're not gonna. And it was like, I learned, I mean, again, I love learning things and I love people, but a film set is another teamwork activity. But it's a teamwork activity where it's similar to tech. You know, in tech, you have salespeople, but you have programmers, and the programmers don't want to talk to people, you know, and it's about knowing kind of where everybody is going to thrive. And you've got somebody who's like doing lighting and they're just quietly setting up their lighting. And then you've got somebody who's like having to give direction. And then, they're a different type of personality. So it's the same thing where everybody's working towards an end product, but you have to find the right place for everybody. And in those, it was a lot of volunteer things. And so somebody would just show up and say they'd do anything. And you had to kind of really quickly assess, like, is this a person who's going to go make sure the car doesn't get towed and like stand up and like raise their hand if we're in a red flag situation? Or is this a person who's going to be better kind of organizing the wardrobe over here? And so it was about kind of assessing really quickly where people would fit in. And then again, figuring out I wasn't the leader in that situation. The director was the leader. So being able to be supportive of somebody else was also something that I learned a lot about. The other place where I actually learned a lot about that, and this is, I don't know, it's just going to sound how it sounds, but in the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like it was not my place to like organize something or to try to control anything, and to be somebody who's like been a business leader and be a supporting character in whatever way was going to help everybody feel safe, more comfortable, like they could express themselves, like we could try to move things forward in a way that the world was becoming a more equitable place. It was like learning how to be a supporting character and being creative. I wasn't coming up with the techniques to make the actor do a certain thing, or I wasn't like able to adjust the sound to make something happen. Those weren't my things, but I could make sure the car didn't get towed and I could make sure everybody got fed. And I watched everybody work towards a common goal, which was to, tell a really good story. And I could do it in a supporting way. So the creative outlet really allowed me to, I see a lot of like things where I'm like, I'm not a great painter, but I imagine a great painter isn't good at getting their art up in a gallery. They're just good at painting. Let the musicians play. Don't make them book their own shows. All of that makes sense to me. And I've seen that very clearly. So kind of knowing who I am and what I can learn from other people. The creative part, it's a lot of fun. And it was an opportunity for me to be more of a supporting player rather than having to be the person kind of at the head of the table. And that's what I liked a lot about it.
I think that's really interesting because I think the work that we or you do in sports and creatively, and also the Black Lives Matter movement that you were a part of, like even that experience, I think being able to know, be self-aware enough to know, like I'm a supporting character here. I am supporting you here. I'm doing this. Also has got to make you a better leader because understanding that moment is also showing your teams how to correctly lead and how to correctly move. And I think a lot of people don't have that self-awareness. So it definitely has made you a better leader, I'm sure.
And we'll have to ask a couple other people for that, but I do. I
Okay.
mean, you know what? Like I don't measure a lot by other people, but I have had people throughout my career stay in touch with me and appreciate that. So it's not like I've left places and people that worked for me were like it never spoke to me again. So those are very positive things. And I think it does have to do with like being a leader. Also, you have to respect everybody. It's not just telling everybody what to do or doing that type of thing. I think respect goes a long, long way. And hopefully having some like long relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. Part of what we do, it's not that serious, is we do a whip highlight, our Women in Power series. And I end the show with this always. I always ask everybody that's a whip that I'm interviewing, what obviously power can mean many things, but when you hear that phrase, what does being a whip or being a woman in power mean to you today, now, right now?
I feel like I read all the questions and not that one. Um,
Surprise.
like,
I think the thing is like sometimes we think of power in the
yeah,
traditional way, but I
yeah,
think for women owning our power is such a
yeah,
big deal and
yeah,
is kind of the intention behind the series.
yeah. I mean, accountability is big with me. Um, I think that trying to embody being a woman in power has a lot to do with taking it one day at a time, almost. It's not about having this big manifesto or a 3 year plan or a 5 year plan. It's goes back to being what are my core values, and it is about respecting other people. It is about, for me, things like diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging. Those matter to me. When I think of diversity, I think of diverse people have diverse life experiences, and therefore they will have had diverse solutions. And if we want to solve business problems, creative problems, sports problems, literally anything, we need to have all of the different types of opportunities and thoughts and experiences in the mix. And that's how we grow. So if I'm put in this position where I can have power, or I'm perceived to have power, using that to bring as many great minds, opportunities, and life experiences to the table, we're stronger together. We started out this conversation talking about, women having conversations with each other, and you and I being in competing positions in the workplace in a very small industry. There were a handful of companies that were always trying to get the same business that we were. And I just knew of you as a person who must be kicking ass over there because we'd come up against you and you were the person who was leading that team. You were the name that I heard. Uh, but there was nothing but respect because if it wasn't me, at least it was going to be you. And I think that being a woman in power is realizing that having that ability to potentially be inclusive. Maybe sometimes we're, at odds and maybe sometimes we're working together, but that pathway is always open. There are no burned bridges here. Being a woman in power is kind of constantly build. And maybe things get broken down, but then building it up again. And hopefully giving it to other people that they see that what they build within themselves is just as important as the person next to them. So I just try to be. I think that sometimes the last thing that I'll say is, well, it's probably not the last thing I'll say, but but that when I have hair like this, I had a guy say to me one time, I drove down south last year and I was in Alabama, and a guy was like, "What does that hair mean?" And I said, "It means I'm a safe person." And I just think we should stop looking at each other in a specific way and care more about hard work and a kind heart, and try to look at what we have more in common to be able to build something. And I hope that I'm able to do that, as a woman in power, a woman who has an opportunity to be a part of influencing other people, that they can see that in themselves as well. It's like we're lighting each other along the way. And when I don't have the light that day, somebody lit it for me. And we're just kind of constantly passing it around and keeping moving on stronger together.
I love that. And I love you. You're so awesome and I'm so happy that you came on the show and that you've been a whip for me on it's not that serious and for all of the good that you're doing, whether it's in women's rugby, whether it's on a construction site, whether it's within your own consulting work. You always bring, you've talked about it, but as someone that's looking on the outside inwards towards you, you always do bring a really authentic self, and it's so refreshing and it's so lovely. And your hair is fabulous, whether it's long and brown or a rainbow color or whatever you're doing with it, whenever you're doing it. It's just so nice and refreshing to have a conversation with you and to have you on the show. So thank you for coming. And like I
Thank
said,
you.
we'll put all of Lisa's information so people can find a way to help donate to U.S. Women's Rugby and get in touch with you. But thank you so much for being on the show and for being a total badass.
You are giving people an opportunity and a platform. You are doing great work.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so stoked. Go to the website, check out Lisa's whip story. She's a total badass, like I said. She's worth it. Her story is worth reading. Go get some merch. Go get a scrunchie to
Get a
support women's
scrunchie.
rugby. Talk to
Yes.
you guys later. Thanks for being on the show. That's a wrap on today's episode of Carrie, It's Not That Serious. If this conversation resonated, subscribe and share it with a whip, a woman in power in your life. You can find more conversations, more community, and all the fun INTS merch you love at itsnotthatserious.com. We're building something meaningful here, and I'm so glad you're a part of it. Until next time, remember, it's not that serious.